TGIF, and I know you are saying, thank God it's Friday, because this is the last day we will be with Jesus's family tree in Matthew 1, 1 through 17, and all those hard to pronounce names. Who knows though? My hope is that you have taken away something spiritual, life-giving, hopeful even, from this week's look at Matthew 1. That's my hope, but if not, then maybe at least knowing some of Jesus's ancestors' names will help you out on trivia night or something. It is our last morning manna in Matthew 1, and here we are together to receive our daily manna, a daily dose of good stuff from God to sustain us throughout this day. So let's get right to it in Matthew 1, 1 through 17. And again, I'm reading from the NRSV translation of the Bible. An account of the genealogy of Jesus the Messiah, the son of David, the son of Abraham. Abraham was the father of Isaac, and Isaac the father of Jacob, and Jacob the father of Judah and his brothers, and Judah the father of Perez and Zerah by Tamar. Perez the father of Hezron, and Hezron the father of Aram, and Aram the father of Amminadab, and Amminadab the father of Nahshon, and Nahshon the father of Salmon, and Salmon the father of Boaz and by Rahab, and Boaz the father of Obed by Ruth, and Obed the father of Jesse, and Jesse the father of King David. And David was the father of Solomon by the wife of Uriah, and Solomon the father of Rehoboam, and Rehoboam the father of Abijah, and Abijah the father of Asaph, and Asaph the father of Jehoshaphat, and Jehoshaphat the father of Joram, and Joram the father of Uzziah, and Uzziah the father of Jotham, and Jotham the father of Ahaz, and Ahaz the father of Hezekiah, and Hezekiah the father of Manasseh, and Manasseh the father of Amos, and Amos the father of Josiah, and Josiah the father of Jeconiah and his brothers at the time of the deportation to Babylon. And after the deportation to Babylon, Jeconiah was the father of Salathiel, and Salathiel the father of Zerubbabel, and Zerubbabel the father of Abiad, and Abiad the father of Eliakim, and Eliakim the father of Azar, and Azar the father of Zadok, and Zadok the father of Achim, and Achim the father of Eliad, and Eliad the father of Eleazar, and Eleazar the father of Mathan, and Mathan the father of Jacob, and Jacob the father of Joseph, the husband of Mary, to whom Jesus was born, who is called the Messiah. So all the generations from Abraham to David are 14 generations. And from David to the deportation to Babylon, 14 generations. And from the deportation to Babylon to the Messiah, 14 generations. So, question, do you have Jesus's family tree memorized by now? It was, after all, Matthew's intent for people to memorize Jesus's lineage, or so it seems, because in the original Koine Greek that this text was written, it has a kind of a rhythmic flow. So in part, the triad of 14 generations is a mnemonic device to help us remember this long list of names, to know Jesus's history and whom and where he came from. So see, we aren't supposed to skip or skim Matthew 1, 1 through 17. They are important and they have a purpose, which we have seen in part, certainly not exhaustively, over the last few days. But that last verse about the 14 and 14 and 14 generations is there more than to point out the obvious division of the sets of the names to aid memory. And it isn't there to be an accurate timeline or account of all the people in Jesus's genealogy, because when you do a really close look at Jesus's family tree here in Matthew, first, 1, there are people missing. 2, there are even wrong names included. I don't have time to go into that, but something you can look into. And 3, the history or time periods, well, they're a little bit off. But the earliest listeners of Matthew would not have gotten so hung up in the historic accuracy of everything. What the first century listeners would have heard is the number 14, which is connected to that holiest of numbers, number 7. Their ears would have perked up and they would have paid attention and understood this truth. God has been active since the beginning of time, and all things since the beginning of time have led to the incarnation of God in the person of Jesus. 3 sets of 14 can also be seen as 6 sets of 7. And well, Jesus is the beginning and also the end of the 7th set of 7. And no, this wasn't a kind of end prophecy that spoke of some specific date that would be the end of all things as we know it, but rather the use of numbers, especially the number 7, points to Jesus' significance as the one the world has been waiting for since the beginning of time. An obvious connection to Genesis 1. But wait, there is more. There is more to these numbers because in Hebrew, letters were also numbers. And King David's name equaled what numbers? Yes, you guessed it. King David's name equaled 14. So Matthew is connecting Jesus with both the creation of the world, but also to King David. So you can't miss that this is the promised one whom God has been planning to send to dwell with humanity for all time. This tells me that we worship a God of the big and small things. God is in the big picture, God is the God of the big picture, but also God is in the tiniest, most minute details. And just as God so carefully planned with a care and purpose Jesus's arrival, God has planned with care and purpose your existence. You, like Jesus, are not an accident, but have been created with love and for a purpose that is found in God, just as Jesus and all his ancestors found their purpose as they walked with God. So never forget the lessons we have learned from Matthew 1 through 17. God is faithful. God is everlasting. We'll see you next week.